In the year 2169, humans are genetically modified to stop aging at 25. At this age, a timer appears on their arm, showing they have 1 year left to live. To extend their lives, they must work, as time has become the new currency. This system allows the wealthy to live forever, while the poor struggle to survive. The world is divided into zones based on wealth, with the richest area known as New Greenwich. In the poor zone, Will lives with his mother, Rachel, in a small apartment. They barely have enough time to survive each day. Rachel is making coffee when Will walks in. She asks Will why he came home late the previous night, and Will answered he took some extra shifts. Will surprises her mother with a bottle of champagne to celebrate her 50th birthday. Will wants to earn extra time by participating in time fights, but Rachel forbids it, knowing it's dangerous. Despite their struggles, Will is kind-hearted. He often gives some of his time to a young girl named Maya, who lives on the streets. Will and his best friend, Borrell, work at a local factory where conditions are harsh. The factory constantly raises the prices of snacks, and it's common to find people who have run out of time lying dead on the floor. Workers are paid daily, but the factory always finds excuses to reduce their pay, claiming they didn't meet their quotas. One night, Will visits a bar where he used to gamble, hoping to collect an hour someone owes him. There, he finds Borrell, who is happily drinking thanks to a stranger buying drinks for everyone. The stranger is Henry Hamilton, a man with a century of time on his timer. Will is confused about why a wealthy man like Henry is in the ghetto and tries to warn him about the Minutemen, a gang known for stealing time. Henry, however, doesn't seem concerned. As Will feared, Fortis, the gang's leader, arrives and challenges Henry to a time fight. Everyone in the bar flees except Will, who hides in the back, watching. Henry accepts the challenge but asks for a moment in the bathroom first. Only one guard follows him, giving Will the chance to knock the guard out and escape with Henry through the back door. They run several blocks and take refuge in an abandoned factory, which Will locks from the inside to ensure their safety for the night. Will questions why a rich man like Henry is in the ghetto. Henry admits he left New Greenwich because, at 105 years old, he's tired of living. He explains that the endless pursuit of time has lost its meaning for him. Will is stunned by Henry's perspective but remains wary of the danger therein. When Will calls Henry's decision foolish, Henry is amused by the young man's lack of understanding. He explains that the cost of living in the ghetto keeps rising intentionally, ensuring that people continue to die. This system exists because the rich can only live if the poor die, creating a cycle of inequality. In the morning, Henry wakes up first and transfers nearly all his time to Will, leaving only 5 minutes for himself. When Will wakes up, he finds a message written on the window, "Don't waste my time." Looking outside, he sees Henry sitting on a bridge, moments before his timer runs out. Unaware of the security cameras nearby, Will goes to the bridge to confirm Henry's death before fleeing the scene. Shortly after, Will appears at Borrell's house, where he meets Borrell's wife, Greta, and their newborn baby. Will speaks to Borrell privately and gifts him a decade of time, matching the 10 years of friendship. Later that evening, Will waits for his mother at the bus stop, but she never arrives. It turns out Rachel only has an hour and a half left, and the bus fare increased earlier that afternoon, leaving her unable to afford the ride home. The walk home takes 2 hours, meaning Rachel must run if she hopes to see her son again. Will, realizing what's happening, also starts running toward her. Mother and son collide in the middle of the street, but it's too late. Rachel's timer runs out, and she dies in Will's arms. The next morning, the timekeepers, a police force tasked with maintaining order, find Henry's body in the river. Agent Leon, convinced Henry was murdered for his time, orders his team to review the security footage. While the cameras don't capture Henry's fall, they do show Will's face, leading the timekeepers to suspect him of Henry's death. Meanwhile, Will is determined to avenge his mother. He hires a limo, pretending to be a wealthy man who's lost, and instructs the driver to take him to New Greenwich. Each time they cross a border, Will pays an huge toll. Once in the city, he checks into a luxurious hotel, where his presence catches the attention of Sylvia, a wealthy socialite. After resting, Will eats at a nearby restaurant, where Sylvia watches him from a distance. The waitress, sensing Will isn't from the area, treats him kindly, especially after he tips her generously. She also advises him that if he plans to visit the casino, he'll need better clothes. Will's rapid crossing of multiple time zones in just a few hours raises red flags in the system, allowing the timekeepers to track his current location. Agent Leon, reviewing the data, realizes he once pursued Will's father years ago. That evening, Will buys a proper suit and heads to the casino. At the entrance, he's asked to make a voluntary donation of a year to gain entry since he isn't a member. Inside, Will joins a poker table where he meets Mr. Weiss, a wealthy businessman who loans time and isn't afraid to bet large amounts. Sylvia, Weiss's daughter, also joins the table but only to observe. Will keeps an eye on her while taking a bold risk and betting all the time he has. The gamble pays off. Will wins the game, impressing Weiss and earning an invitation to his upcoming party. The next day, Will buys an expensive car and drives it to Weiss's party. Sylvia, intrigued by Will, invites him to dance. She tells him she can tell he's from the ghetto and admits she sometimes envies people like him. Despite her wealth, she feels trapped, always surrounded by her father's guards and lacking real freedom. She wishes she could do something reckless or meaningful. Will, seizing the moment, takes her to the beach behind the house and suggests they go skinny dipping. Sylvia hesitates at first but soon joins Will in the water. As they swim, they talk about doing more reckless things together. When people start searching for Sylvia, she hides with Will in a nearby cave. She urges him to return to the party before they get into trouble. The two sneak back into the mansion through separate entrances to avoid drawing suspicion. Weiss invites Will to join another poker game, but their plans are interrupted when the timekeepers burst in. They've tracked Will's location through the purchase of his expensive car. Will is taken to a private office for questioning. He explains that Henry chose to time out on his own, but the timekeepers don't believe him. They confiscate most of his time, leaving him with only 2 hours for processing. During the interrogation, Leon remarks that Will reminds him of his father, a man Will barely remembers. Weiss and Sylvia arrive to check on the situation, and Will uses the distraction to overpower the timekeepers, steal a gun, and escape. He grabs Sylvia as a hostage, and they flee through the back door. Jumping into Will's car, Leon chases them through the city, even managing to ram Will's car from behind. Will, however, drives in reverse, dodging a truck at the last second. Leon isn't as quick and crashes into the truck, allowing Will and Sylvia to escape. As they head toward the ghetto, Will asks Sylvia for some of her time, but she refuses. When they reach the bridge, Will is distracted by the security cameras and fails to notice a spike strip on the road. The car crashes, leaving both Will and Sylvia unconscious. Minutes later, Fortis and his gang find them. They immediately start stealing Sylvia's time, but the sound of approaching timekeeper sirens forces them to flee. By the time Will and Sylvia wake up, Sylvia has only half an hour left on her timer. Panicked, she begs Will for help. Will finds it ironic that Sylvia, who once refused to share her time, is now desperate for his assistance. Despite this, he helps her and takes her into town. After they leave, the timekeepers arrive to inspect the crashed car. Leon, however, first has to request his daily pay, as he never carries more time than necessary. Seeing the situation, Leon decides not to chase Will further, confident that Will contact them eventually. Will goes to Borel's house for help, but Greta delivers devastating news. Borel drank himself to death, leaving 9 years unused on his timer. Sylvia begins to panic again, but Will notices her expensive earrings. He drags her to a pawn shop, hoping to trade them for time. The pawn shop owner is about to close but makes an exception when he sees the value of Sylvia's earrings. Noticing their desperation, he offers them only 2 days of time, knowing they have no choice but to accept. With no other options, Will and Sylvia take the deal to survive. Next, they find a pay phone, and Will instructs Sylvia to call her home so he can speak to Leon. Will demands a ransom of 1,000 years of time, insisting it be distributed to the timelines in the ghetto. Leon warns Will that he's becoming too much like his father and reveals a shocking truth. Will's father didn't die in a time fight as Will believed. He was involved in something far more dangerous. Will hangs up, and Leon informs Sylvia's parents of the ransom demand. Weiss, however, hesitates to part with what he considers pocket change. Will takes Sylvia to his apartment to spend the night. There, Sylvia changes into Rachel's old clothes and asks Will about his father. Will explains that his dad was a skilled time fighter who taught him valuable tricks. To demonstrate, he grabs Sylvia's arm and explains that time fighting is a battle of wills between timers. His father's strategy was to let the opponent believe they had the upper hand, allow his own timer to nearly reach zero, and then, when the opponent was distracted by their impending victory, turn the tables and take all their time. Will once believed his father died in a time fight, but now he realizes his father was likely killed for giving away the time he won. Will and Sylvia then share stories of their 20th birthdays. Will recalls how his timer timer started while he was on the street, and he almost lost his extra year immediately because of his family's debts. In contrast, Sylvia describes waking up peacefully in bed, with her father gifting her a decade of time to celebrate. The next morning, Will looks out the window at the Timeline building, but there's no charity to distribute. Weiss refused to pay the ransom. Sylvia is hurt by her father's indifference but finally understands that his wealth was built by exploiting others. Will tells Sylvia to go home, but she refuses, and the two decide to work together, sealing their partnership with a kiss. Sylvia still wants to call home, so Will gives her the gun for protection while he watches from a distance. Weiss answers Sylvia's call and brushes off her anger to warn her that the timekeepers are coming for her. As Sylvia turns around, she sees Leon approaching Will. Without hesitation, she shoots Leon in the arm. Will uses the opportunity to check Leon's timer and discovers that timekeepers carry very little time to deter thieves. In an unexpected move, Will gives Leon some time so his co-workers can rescue him. As Will and Sylvia escape in Leon's car, Leon begins walking out of town, enduring shouts from angry citizens who accuse him of failing to protect the poor. Fortunately, a fellow timekeeper arrives to rescue him before the situation turns violent. Later, Sylvia points out that they can't keep driving a police car without drawing attention. This gives Will an idea. He pretends to be a timekeeper and pulls over another car on the road. They steal the wealthy driver's earrings and time, leaving her with only one day before speeding off in her car. Once they're far enough from town, they stop to watch the news and discover they're now wanted criminals. Will again urges Sylvia to return home, but she refuses, finding their mission far more meaningful than her old life. Meanwhile, Weiss lies to his investors, assuring them everything is under control. Leon arrives to inform Weiss that Sylvia is no longer just a kidnapping victim, she's now being pursued as a criminal. Weiss tries to bribe Leon to drop the case, but Leon refuses, warning him that if Sylvia contacts him, he must report it to the timekeepers or face arrest as an accomplice. Later, Sylvia asks Will if he would truly give away time if he had enough. When Will confirms he would give away time if he had it, Sylvia proposes a bold plan. The two steal one of Weiss's money trucks and crash it into a time bank. They grab as many time capsules as they can, leaving the rest for the people in the ghetto to take. By the time the timekeepers arrive, the bank is empty. That evening, Greta finds a time capsule hidden in her laundry, a gesture of apology from Will. Will also visits Maya, who is sleeping on the streets, and leaves her extra time. The rest of the stolen time is taken to the Timeline building, where the clerk distributes it to those in need. At the timekeeper's office, Leon notices an unusual amount of time in the system and worries that Will's actions might be harming the very people he's trying to help. The next morning, Fortis attempts to rob a man, but the man fights back with a gun he recently bought. Fortis pretends to let him go but shoots him as soon as he turns his back. When Fortis checks the man's timer, he's shocked to see how much time has been wasted. Will and Sylvia continue robbing time banks across the city, and their exploits make headlines. Weiss wonders if his daughter is trying to destroy him, but his wife reminds him that he nearly suffocated her ambitions long before this. A week later, Leon and his team locate Will's apartment and prepare to arrest them. However, Will overhears their radio chatter through the window and escapes with Sylvia. They burst into a neighboring apartment, leap through a window, and land safely on a car below, narrowly avoiding capture. Leon follows Will and Sylvia, chasing them through the town. When the pursuit moves to the rooftops, Leon opens fire on them. Will shoots back but misses, forcing him and Sylvia to retreat. They climb down and board a bus. The driver considers turning them in, but Will bribes him to stay quiet, allowing them to leave Leon behind. A few hours later, Will and Sylvia check into a hotel, paying extra to book all the rooms and ensure the receptionist keeps their presence a secret. When a new guest arrives, he's told the hotel is fully booked, but he catches a glimpse of Will and Sylvia heading upstairs. Later, Fortis and his gang threaten people on the streets for information about Will and Sylvia. At first, the crowd stays silent, wanting to protect the duo who've helped them. But when Fortis kills a man to prove he's serious, the hotel guest from earlier breaks and reveals what he saw. Back at the hotel, Will and Sylvia discover there's a 10-year reward for their capture, which they find insulting. Suddenly, Fortis and his men burst into their room, holding them at gunpoint. Fortis explains that the timekeepers tolerate him because he only steals from his own people. But now he must restore order to maintain his position. Fortis claims he doesn't enjoy killing in cold blood and challenges Will to a time fight. Will uses the strategy his father taught him. He lets Fortis believe he's winning, allowing his own timer to nearly run out. As Fortis becomes distracted by his apparent victory, Will turns the tables and begins taking all of Fortis's time. The guards move closer, stunned by what they're witnessing. Will seizes the moment to shoot them all and ensures Fortis's timer runs out completely. By the time the timekeepers arrive at the hotel, Will and Sylvia are long gone. Hours later, Will notices that prices and loan rates are rising even faster to counteract the extra time now circulating in the streets. Their small-scale robberies aren't enough to make a real impact. They'd need 1,000,000 years to truly disrupt the system. Fortunately, Sylvia knows where to find such a massive amount. The next day, Weiss, increasingly worried, arrives at work with extra bodyguards. The guards tense up at the sight of a potential threat, but it's just Sylvia, announcing she wants to surrender. Weiss believes her and prepares to take her back, but the distraction allows Will to sneak up and take him hostage. Will and Sylvia force Weiss to open the safe in his office, where he keeps a capsule containing 1,000,000 years. Weiss argues that giving a year to 1,000,000 people only prolongs their suffering and that flooding the wrong zone with such an amount could destabilize the entire system. Will replies that's exactly his intention. After locking Weiss in his office, Will and Sylvia escape with the capsule. When the timekeepers learn of the robbery, they block the bridge to prevent Will and Sylvia from returning to the ghetto. Leon joins the chase but becomes so focused on catching them that he forgets to collect his daily pay. The timekeepers open fire, but Will ignores the bullets and drives through the time zone barrier, reaching the ghetto. Leon, determined not to let them escape, crashes his car into theirs. Will quickly exits the vehicle and hands the 1,000,000-year capsule to Maya. He and Sylvia then pretend to surrender, leading Leon to believe he's won. However, at that moment, the timeline announces that there's time for everyone. A massive, excited crowd floods the streets, blocking Leon's path and allowing Will and Sylvia to slip away. Leon pushes through the crowd, gets back in his car, and continues the chase. But when Will and Sylvia cross another barrier, Leon is forced to follow on foot. Eventually, Leon catches up to them. Will guesses that Leon was once from the ghetto too, and Leon confirms it, explaining that he worked hard to escape poverty and believes that's how the system should work. He tries to arrest them, but Will points out it's pointless. He and Sylvia only have minutes left on their timers and will die soon anyway. This prompts Leon to check his own timer, and he realizes he's almost out of time too, having forgotten to collect his daily pay. In an instant, Leon's timer runs out, and he collapses dead on the road. Will and Sylvia, with only seconds left, share a final kiss. But Will remembers that the timekeeper's vehicles contain time. He sprints to Leon's car to take some for himself. Sylvia, slower and afraid she won't make it, watches in despair. Will turns back, meeting her halfway, and they share the stolen time just as their timers nearly expire. Meanwhile, back at Weiss's company, he admits defeat and tells his employees to stand down, acknowledging that the system is collapsing. Across the nation, news broadcasts show people flooding the streets, demanding change. The factories stand idle, and the old order begins to crumble. Will and Sylvia, now symbols of rebellion, continue their fight, ensuring the system they challenged will never return. If you enjoyed this recap, smash that like button, subscribe to Recap Revolution, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update, and also drop your comments below. See you in the next one.